HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Everyday.
The Governor General calls for more to stop the scourge of crime. Good evening, everyone. I'm Charisma Robinson.
I'm Kish Latterly. Thanks so much for joining us. It's not often that governors general speak to the burgeoning issues affecting the country, but as she makes her annual rounds visiting the major public health care facilities in the country, Her Excellency Dame Marguerite Pindling has become vocal on critical issues affecting the country. Yesterday, as she visited the nation's premier health care facility, the issue of crime was addressed. This as she made an emotional appeal. Here's Clint Watson.
The effects of crime provoking the holder of the nation's highest office to speak out. Governor General Her Excellency Dame Marguerite Pindling, in her address at the annual Christmas visit to the Princess Margaret Hospital, spoke out against the vicious cycle that continues to negatively affect our country.
We could do better than this as a people. We can do better. No lives were lost in that hurricane. That should say something to us. That a God, a good and gracious God, looks down on this country. The blessings. But somebody has fallen down on the job.
The recent murder of a 16-year-old Doris Johnson student has gripped the nation, and Dame Marguerite says she too was impacted by the senseless killing.
And I want you to know that I'm here this morning with a very heavy heart because of the loss of life of that student yesterday. We've got to pray, Father Campbell. I don't think we trouble the throne enough, because something has to give, especially at this time of the year. Some mothers are out there today, weeping, and I feel like weeping for them.
The men and women of PMH work tirelessly on the front line and feel the effects of crime daily, trying to save the lives of victims of crime who are shot and stabbed. For this, the Governor General saluted them and praised their work.
You, more than most, see the immediate and devastating effects of crime and violence.
Her Excellency also touched briefly on national health insurance, giving the nod of its importance to the people.
My husband once said that cookouts will not help his people. And he did introduce national health care way back in 1982 when he opened the Elizabeth Estates Clinic. I think it was 1989.
Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
Police tonight have 3 young men in custody in connection to the stabbing death of a 16-year-old Doris Johnson student. Donnie Wilson was stabbed on Wednesday near Blanco Beach, where Fox Hill Road and Prince Charles Drive intersect. Police now have a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, and 17-year-old in custody. No one has been charged as yet. The Court of Appeal has refused to grant alleged drug lord Melvin Maycock Sr. and several of his accomplices permission to appeal to the Privy Council regarding a November 18th decision of the court refusing their habeas corpus application. In refusing the application, Court President Justice Anita Allen noted that no question of law or general public importance arose for the men to appeal to the Privy Council. Melvin Maycock Sr., Trevor Roberts, Shanto Curry, Devroy Moss, Wilfred Ferguson, Sheldon Moore, Gordon Newbold, Brian and Lyndon Deal, Carl Kummer, and Tory Lockhart had sought a stay of the court's decision, preventing their extradition to the United States to answer to drug charges pending their appeals to the Privy Council. The men, with the exception of Maycock, who is serving time on another matter, were also seeking bail. However, the court noted that the men must now seek special leave to appeal to the Privy Council directly, and it's anticipated that they will do just that. A verdict could come as early as Monday in the Kurt McCartney murder trial. Both sides gave closing addresses today in a final pitch to the jury. All that's left is Senior Justice Stephen Isaacs to sum up the case and direct jurors on the law before handing it over to them for deliberations. McCartney is the brother of DNA leader Branford McCartney. A pathologist testified earlier that McCartney died from gunshot injuries to the head and blunt force trauma over most parts of his body. Thorne Edwards, O'Kel Farrington, Sumner Ingram, and Lindira Curry are accused of that crime. Philip Hilton, Sonia Timothy, Ramona Farquharson Seymour, and Terrell Butler make up the defense. Roger Thompson is the lead prosecutor. Senior Justice Stephen Isaacs is presiding. A man shot yesterday died in Princess Margaret Hospital last night, becoming the nation's 140th homicide victim for the year. Police launched an island-wide search for a suspect responsible for the shooting death of that man yesterday. According to reports, shortly after 12 noon, a man was riding a bicycle on Miami Street when a man armed with a handgun approached and shot him. The victim was rushed to hospital in critical condition, where he later died.
Deputy Prime Minister responsible for Public Works and Urban Development, the Honorable Philip Davis, is adamant that the government is on course to move the Bahamas Electricity Corporation out of the red and to a sustained position of profitability. Disclosing more on how the government intends to turn BEC around, Minister Davis says the Electricity Bill 2015 is key in BEC's legislative reform. The bill, he highlights, provides for the separation between its regulatory and operations functions. Addressing an energy reform forum this week, Minister Davis said the bill, among other things, will transfer BEC to a wholly owned subsidiary company, Bahamas Power and Light, but provide for the transfer of BEC staff as well.
Every employee shall, during the transfer period, be employed by BPL under terms and conditions of employment that are no less favorable than those which apply to the employee's employment with the corporation now. Transfers for the purposes of pension and gratuity benefits will be treated as continuous employment.
Now, Minister Davis describes this plan of action by the government as in the best interest of BEC and the country in general. Primarily, he says, since BEC nets a loss of up to $30 million each year, coupled with unreliable service to the detriment of consumers.
We have chosen this path for BEC because the corporation is close to being insolvent without the support of a government guarantee. The dire state of BEC's existing generation assets have visited unprecedented hardship on residents and businesses. Its disparate system design requires major capital investment of at least $450 million over the next 5 years to resolve the many issues it faces. We also know that BEC continues to incur $20 to $30 million losses every year due to an archaic rate structure, a financial and operational situation that is impossible to sustain.
Janine McCartney served in the public service for 41 years, and yesterday she was honored by government officials, friends, and family during a special luncheon.
Now, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance started out in the public service as a dietitian and served in a number of ministries. Motivated by ensuring the greater good of her fellow Bahamians, McCartney says success is more than just showing up for work. In fact, while work in the public service can be described by some as just a job rather than a career, McCartney is encouraging those who remain in the public service to remain steadfast in their endeavors.
It doesn't matter where you start, but you can work, and through industry and productivity, you can attain the top. I started as a dietitian and I had a circuitous route, but I ended as a permanent secretary. So if I did it, anybody else can do it. Continue to perform and produce. We do not know who's looking, and we are being constantly evaluated. And I implore young officers, equip yourselves, get yourself the academic qualifications so when the opportunity knocks, you're ready.
Now, Prime Minister Christie was among those acknowledging McCartney for her stellar service. He said McCartney leaves a fine example for others to follow.
We are demonstrating a sense of gratitude as a country to one who has given much to the country, and we salute her for all that she has been. The final point I'd like to make is that people like Jan, Ruth Miller, They are exemplars in our country. People look to them and say, I could do that too, or I want to do that. I want to be able to do the same thing.